In the tumultuous landscape of love and betrayal, few experiences cut deeper than a divorce. It's a chapter marked by heartache, anger, and the desperate need for closure. My journey began with the shocking revelation of my wife's infidelity, sending me spiraling into a whirlwind of emotions. I was determined not only to navigate the pain of our crumbling marriage, but also to emerge victorious, armed with the truth and a plan. As I delved into the complexities of our shattered relationship, I found myself entangled in a web of deceit that would lead me to confront my wife in a public setting, turning the tables in a way I never anticipated. What unfolded was not just a fight for my dignity, but a transformative journey toward healing and rediscovery for both myself and my daughter. My name is Tom J., and my wife is Linda. We first crossed paths in college when I was 23 and she was 21. At that time, I was serving in the Army while pursuing a dual degree in economics and accounting, while Linda focused on her biology major. My military duties were sporadic but often perilous, as our unit was frequently assigned discrete missions that sometimes involved retribution against targets that appeared friendly. Essentially, we functioned as covert operatives, with my specialty lying in planning and close combat. By the time I graduated at 25, I had made the decision to resign from the Army 2 years later so I could marry Linda. Over the next 4 years, we welcomed 2 beautiful daughters into our family. I carved out a career for myself, working independently to handle accounting for local businesses and trading commodities from home, while Linda managed the demands of motherhood and eventually secured a position at a lab affiliated with a nearby college. After a decade of marriage, with both girls now in school, I continued working from home to support Linda's return to the workforce, which she relished. We lived in the house I had grown up in, having purchased it from my parents when they decided to relocate to Florida. During my time in the Army, our missions often presented opportunities to acquire loot, which we shared among the unit members. With a bit of financial stability now in our lives, we felt it was time to celebrate. One February night, we decided to go out with some neighborhood friends for dinner and dancing at a local club. There were 8 of us, each with a babysitter for the evening. Linda looked stunning in her blue silk dress, slim and elegant with her brunette hair cascading down her back. We enjoyed a wonderful meal and danced the night away, the atmosphere filled with laughter and camaraderie. During our night out, a group of 6 entered the club, including Mark Stevens, a well-known all-pro linebacker for a local football team. His presence was instantly felt, as all the women at our table noticed him immediately. He was accompanied by a lovely blonde who wore an eye-catching engagement ring. Our friend June whispered that she was a cheerleader for the team and engaged to Stevens. As the night progressed, I noticed Stevens staring at our table. Without acknowledging my presence, he approached Linda and asked her to dance. I felt a surge of irritation and tried to intervene, but Linda, caught up in the excitement, went along without a backward glance. Annoyed, I walked to the bar to grab a coffee, passing them by. Linda appeared indifferent as I prepared my drink. After a couple of upbeat dances, a slow song began to play, and I watched helplessly as Linda wrapped her arms around Mark, moving in close. My frustration bubbled over while I remained at the bar, ignoring the disapproving looks from the women at our table. Linda, lost in her dance with Mark, didn't seem to notice when the slow number finally ended. When she returned to our table, she looked flustered and quickly sat next to June. I couldn't help but comment, "Looks like you 2 had your fun." I might have been a bit too harsh, but June quickly reassured me. "It was just a dance, nothing serious." Feeling offended, I took a seat, simmering with frustration as June and Linda excused themselves to the ladies' room. When they returned, I noticed Linda was missing. Curiosity piqued, I asked June where she was. With a look of concern, June informed me that Linda had left with Mark. Shocked, I rushed outside and saw Linda getting into a red Escalade that then sped off into the night. Back at the table, June turned to the others, questioning if they were aware of Linda's actions. I snapped at June, suggesting that she should let Linda have her fun, but deep down, I was furious. "I don't need her to come back. Our relationship is over," I declared, and my proclamation sent shockwaves through the table. Some felt I was being too harsh, but I was too angry to care. "Don't you all realize what she's doing?" I shot back, feeling utterly betrayed. I turned away, heading toward the coat check, my mind racing with emotions. As I walked, I noticed the blonde woman who had come with Stevens, sitting on the steps in tears. I approached her, concern flooding over me. "Are you his fiancée?" I asked gently. She nodded, wiping her eyes, but her expression quickly changed as she clarified, "Not anymore. He took me to our house on Cherry Lane and promised not to do this once we were engaged." She expressed her sorrow, mentioning that he would probably be done with Linda by morning and would drive her home. Despite her tears, she managed a bittersweet smile as I handed her my business card, telling her, "If you need to talk, give me a call." I retrieved my coat but chose to leave Linda behind. Instead, I headed to the hotel room, packed my belongings, and checked out. As I drove home, a fully formed plan began to take shape in my mind. This situation reminded me of something that had happened during my service, an experience that contributed to my survival. I regretted not thinking of this sooner, before Linda made her reckless choice. Once I parked my car in the garage, I engaged the security system and retrieved a length of rope stored in the basement. I changed out of my clothes and donned a black Under Armour suit, a black hoodie, dark gray sweatpants, and old sneakers. I also grabbed 2 sets of gloves and a balaclava mask. Climbing up to the attic, I secured the rope to a sturdy beam, just as I had in my childhood home. With a leap of faith, I climbed out of the narrow window and bounced down the side of the house, running through the wooded area nearby. I hopped the side fence and headed to the rear workshop. Inside, I quickly gathered a backpack, extra wool socks, a pink scarf, and an old hand axe from the toolbox. I packed everything carefully and grabbed my bike, pedaling toward the river. As I crossed the river bridge and rode up toward Cherry Street, I spotted the house adorned with a football statue and the unmistakable red Escalade parked outside. I could feel my heart racing as I approached. Using the axe, I shattered the passenger side window, triggering the alarm. I quickly hid behind a porch pillar, waiting for my moment. When the door opened, I swiftly dealt with the man inside, my adrenaline pumping. I stepped back into the house, closing the front door behind me, and jogged off into the night. I jumped the stone wall, retrieved my bike, and pulled out the wool socks from my backpack. I carefully placed the axe, knife, gloves, and shoes inside the pack, zipped it up, and mounted my bike once more. Riding away toward the river near the bridge, I stopped and tossed the entire backpack as far as I could into the fast-moving water. The rain from the previous day had swollen the currents, making it the perfect time to rid myself of any incriminating evidence. With each stroke of my pedals, I felt a sense of purpose and clarity. This was no longer just about Linda. It was about reclaiming my life and finding a way to ensure that this betrayal would not go unanswered. A night of turmoil. The river flowed swiftly beside me as I pedaled my bike back home through the nearby woods, feeling the chill of the early morning air on my skin. Once I arrived, I let myself into the workshop, where I quickly changed out of my damp socks and slipped into a fresh pair of sneakers. After spraying an ammonia solution on the bike's handlebars and pedals, I wiped them clean, ensuring I left no trace of my late-night escapade. As I jogged back to the house, I hopped over the side fence and climbed up the exterior of the house, an endeavor that proved more challenging than I had anticipated. Still, I managed to make it, scrambling through a small window that was barely ajar. I pulled up the rope I had wound around the window handle and wiped the sill with a rag to eliminate any evidence of my entrance. Making my way to the basement, I used the rope to lower all my clothes, including the mask and gloves, into the washer in the cramped basement bathroom. I took an extra-long shower, scrubbing every inch of my body and washing my hair twice, desperate to rid myself of the night's remnants. Once I was satisfied with my cleanliness, I put on a pair of exercise shorts and headed upstairs, leaving the basement door ajar to hear when the washing machine would finish. After contemplating my wardrobe choices, I decided to wear the clothes I had donned the night before at the club. Returning to the basement, I transferred the wet clothing to the dryer and made my way back upstairs. In need of a snack and a moment to collect my thoughts, I poured myself a shot of whiskey, settling into a chair and letting the warmth of the liquor seep into my bones. When the dryer chimed, I took the clothes upstairs, putting them away with meticulous care. The balaclava mask found its place back in the closet where it had originally been stored. As I glanced at the clock, I realized it was 2:50 a.m. The entire sequence of events, entering the house after the club, had begun around midnight. Exhausted, I sank into the couch with another whiskey, the day's chaos washing over me like a wave, and soon I fell into a deep sleep. I was jolted awake by the sound of the door chime. Groggy, I checked the door camera display and was met with an unexpected sight. Two police officers, an African-American woman and a white man sporting a crew cut. They were there to speak with me. When the doorbell rang again, I opened it to find Detective Asper and Detective Logan flashing their badges. Uncertainty gripped me, and I expressed my concern for Linda, asking about her safety. The detectives reassured me, saying she hadn't suffered any physical harm but mentioned that Mr. Stevens had been attacked. I invited them inside and inquired about Linda's current whereabouts. The white detective informed me that she was at the hospital receiving treatment for shock. I paused, taking in the gravity of the situation, and they returned my gaze with solemn expressions. "You can have a seat if you'd like," I offered, gesturing toward the couch. The detectives opted for separate, straight-backed chairs while I settled onto the couch, trying to gather my thoughts. "I think you should explain what happened," I proposed, sensing the need to get ahead of the narrative. Detective Logan echoed my suggestion, asking what I had done since Linda left the club with Stevens. Detective Asper urged me to share the details, insisting on a clear answer. I explained, "After they left, I went back to our hotel room, packed my things, and drove home. I had a few drinks, enough to knock me out on the couch. When asked if anyone else was with me, I confirmed that the kids were with a sitter for the night. They probed further, inquiring whether I had made any calls or sent any emails, to which I replied negatively, emphasizing that I had not left the house at all. Detective Asper surveyed my surroundings, noting the security system. "What's the coverage like?" he asked. I offered to show them. "Come upstairs," I suggested, leading them to the office where I demonstrated the system. I downloaded footage from 6 p.m. until their arrival, handing them a jump drive that contained all relevant data. "This system covers all 3 doors, front, side, and patio, along with the sliding door to the pool area," I explained. "However, the side I came down doesn't have a door. It just faces the woods and has 2 large windows that don't open." Detective Logan remarked that they would need to confiscate my computer for further investigation. "I don't see why that's necessary," I replied, my voice tinged with skepticism. "What if you tampered with it before arriving?" Logan nodded in agreement, but emphasized that the computer couldn't be gone for more than a day. I assured him I could download the same data onto an external drive for my records. After carrying out the task, I allowed the detectives to look around, but insisted they stay together and within my sight. They snapped a few pictures and, after what felt like an eternity, finally left. As the clock struck 7:10 a.m., I knew I had to inform Linda's parents, John and Stephanie, who lived nearby. They were at their lake house at the time. John was taken aback by Linda's actions, while Stephanie seemed less surprised, as if she had expected some sort of drama. "Are you planning to see Linda?" Stephanie asked, concern etched across her face. "No," I replied, my tone firm. "I have no desire to have anything to do with her after everything that's happened. I feel bad for the guy who got attacked, but it's not my responsibility. He has a history of this kind of behavior." I mentioned that when Linda was discharged from the hospital, she needed to stay away from me and the house, and we could arrange for her belongings to be collected. John suggested that I should move out and let Linda stay, but I asserted, "This is my house, it's not community property." The conversation ended on a tense note, and I made a call to my parents in Florida to recount the night's events. They too were shocked by Linda's behavior. My dad mentioned having seen a headline about Stevens being attacked and killed, which didn't surprise me in the least. Just as I hung up, the landline rang. It was Judy, asking about Linda's whereabouts, having heard about Mark's passing. I confirmed Linda was in the hospital with shock and reiterated my reluctance to see her. "Casey, you need to support Linda," Judy urged. "Support her? After what she's done? I can't," I replied, frustration creeping into my voice. The conversation grew heated, and Judy accused me of being selfish before hanging up abruptly. Feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders, I took another shower, attempting to wash away the emotional turmoil, and got dressed to pick up the kids from the sitter around 8 o'clock a.m. When we returned home, the kids asked about Linda, and I informed them she wouldn't be there that day. "Let's carry on with our day," I suggested, trying to keep the mood light. I got them dressed for their soccer games and took them to the soccer complex for their noon and 1:30 p.m. matches. As I sat in the bleachers, watching them play, I tried to find solace in their laughter and joy. But my mind lingered on the chaos of the night before, uncertain of what the future would hold. After the game, we celebrated with ice cream before heading home. The sweet treat was a welcome distraction, but as soon as I walked through the door, I felt a wave of dread wash over me. My muted cell phone buzzed with notifications, messages that seemed to scream for my attention. One was from Linda's parents, stating that she was at St. Jude's Hospital, non-communicative. Another came from a doctor at the hospital urging me to call. There was also a message from Judy saying that Linda was with the police and wasn't talking to anyone. She suggested I might want to cool off and take the girls to see her. I called the girls downstairs, trying to keep my voice steady as I explained the situation. "Your mom is in the hospital, emotionally shaken but not physically hurt," I said, watching their eyes widen with concern. They wanted to know what had happened, and I took a deep breath. "Last night, she went off with a famous football player to his house. There's no easy way to say this, and I debated keeping it from you, but you deserve to know. Someone attacked the football player, but apparently, Linda wasn't harmed. She must have stumbled upon the chaos because she's in the hospital in shock." The girls hesitated, unsure if they wanted to visit her. I urged them to get dressed, reminding them that their mom needed them, and we made our way to the hospital. I called Dr. Laura Thompson again, who informed me that Linda was in a traumatized state and currently catatonic. "Would bringing the kids help?" I asked, my heart heavy. She hesitated before asking if they were aware of Linda's involvement with the football player. "Yes," I replied. "The girls are ready to come if you think it might help." Dr. Thompson agreed to meet us in room 3 in half an hour. When we arrived, Dr. Thompson, a psychiatrist in her late 30s, greeted us and explained Linda's condition to the girls. "Your mom is experiencing severe shock and is very disoriented. Seeing you might help her," she said gently. The girls exchanged glances, and with a quiet determination, they walked towards the door. I followed, peering inside the room. Linda sat on the hospital bed, staring blankly at the TV, where cartoons flickered mindlessly. Tentatively, Laura, the oldest, reached out and touched her mother's hand, calling softly, "Mom?" Shelley, her younger sister, joined her, but there was no response. My heart sank as I watched Shelley's eyes well up with tears. I quickly scooped her up into my arms, glancing at Linda's unresponsive state, and took Laura's hand, leading them back out. "We tried," I whispered to them, feeling a deep ache in my chest. "Will Mom wake up?" Laura asked, her voice shaky. "I'm sure she will eventually," I reassured her, though my own certainty was waning. "You might be able to visit her again soon." "What if she doesn't wake up?" Shelley whispered, her innocence cutting through my resolve. "She will, I promise," I said, though my heart was heavy with doubt. The doctor assured us, "I'll let you know as soon as she's responsive again." As we left the hospital, both girls were crying softly in the back seat of the car. I questioned whether bringing them had been the right choice. Even amidst my anger over Linda's infidelity, I hadn't wished this pain upon her. I felt a wave of remorse crash over me. Yes, she deserved to face the consequences of her actions, but not like this. A few tears slipped down my cheeks as I drove home. Back at the house, I tried to distract the girls by making them breakfast, eggs and toast. I deliberately involved them in the cooking, hoping it would lift their spirits. After breakfast, I set up a movie for them in my office while I dialed a friend, a public defender, seeking any information about what had happened at Stephen's house after I left. He couldn't obtain police reports, but he suggested that ambulance run reports might be publicly available. I asked him to look into it and hung up. Sitting in the living room, I watched the movie with the girls, my mind racing with thoughts of the evening's events. An hour later, my lawyer friend called back, emailing me the ambulance run report. My heart sank as I read through it, revealing a distressing situation. I shared the details of the police visit, and he said that if security footage showed no one coming or going, I probably didn't need to worry. However, he cautioned me about potential police actions and recommended that I consult with a lawyer, just in case. Though I felt confident I didn't need one, I decided to call the recommended attorney anyway. After reviewing the ambulance report, I learned that police had found Linda with Stevens's head cradled in her lap, covered in blood. She was dressed in a thin robe, repeating "no" over and over. The officers had asked if she saw who did it, but she had remained silent. A sickening feeling washed over me as I considered what she had witnessed. Would she ever recover from this? I began to research PTSD, having done so before, specifically looking into shock-induced catatonic states. I noted that while recovery was possible, the long-term effects of PTSD could be severe. My lawyer, J.N. Drake, scheduled a Monday morning appointment at 9:30 a.m. and provided me with her cell number for any urgent police contact, though thankfully, no one reached out on Sunday. The girls and I lounged around, attempting to reassure them about Linda's eventual return while acknowledging that she might still need our help. I wondered what Linda's reaction to me would be. I doubted she had witnessed anything significant. If she did, it would likely be a figure in black with a mask. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that she might associate our past with her current situation. I didn't believe she had any experience with me that would lead her to seriously consider me capable of the violence that had unfolded. Monday arrived, and after sending the girls off to school, I monitored local news coverage of Stevens's death. Linda's name didn't appear, but it was widely known that he had hosted a married woman during the attack. Police were called by a neighbor in response to Linda's screams, and so far, no one outside of the authorities had connected her to the incident. However, I knew that would likely change in time. Joan Drake, a sharp-looking blonde around 45 years old, heard the story and reviewed the ambulance report. She was appalled by what had transpired. After confirming the integrity of the security video, I requested the return of my computer for work purposes, providing a retainer. John called the police station, requesting Detective Asper to facilitate its retrieval. As I waited, I couldn't help but reflect on the weight of the situation. Linda's world had been shattered, and my life was becoming a chaotic mess of legal concerns and emotional turmoil. I was determined to do whatever it took to support the girls and help Linda find her way back from this dark place. Whatever happened next, I knew I had to be ready for it. After the traumatic events that had unfolded, it was a relief to know that Linda had recovered from her catatonic state, but the shadow of PTSD loomed over her. Joan Drake, my attorney, had scheduled a meeting for me that Monday morning at 9:30. Before hanging up, she handed me her cell number, advising that I call her if the police arrived early. Thankfully, they didn't show up right away. Joan insisted that I had enough time to verify whether the computer had been tampered with, assuring me that I would be able to tell if something was off. "I'll send someone from the office to pick it up tomorrow morning," I replied, shaking my head at her insistence. Joan nodded in understanding and confirmed that her assistant would arrive at 9 a.m. Once our call ended, I made it clear to Joan that I had no intention of speaking with the police without a way to record any conversation. I wanted to ensure that my words were documented in case things spiraled out of control. As I left the office that afternoon, I was filled with a mix of apprehension and determination. When the girls returned from school, they immediately asked about their mom. Earlier, I had reached out to the doctor but learned that there hadn't been any significant change in Linda's condition. The girls settled down to tackle their homework, and later we ordered pizza. With a touch of humor, I remarked, "If your mom doesn't come back soon, I might just have to learn how to cook." Laughter erupted, masking the underlying tension. In truth, I was quite capable in the kitchen. It was just that I rarely had to cook at home. As Laura's sister headed upstairs, Laura turned to me with a serious expression. "Do you think you can forgive Mom for being with another man?" she asked. I paused before responding. "Right now, I just want her to get better," I said honestly. A little while later, the landline rang. It was Jim Bean from the local newspaper, introducing himself as part of the investigative team. We have information suggesting that your wife, Linda, was with Mark Stevens when he was attacked. Can you confirm that? I hesitated, feeling the weight of the situation. I had hoped to keep Mark's name out of the public eye, especially given the potential repercussions for my daughters. I'd prefer that this man's privacy be respected, I said cautiously, explaining the possible impact on my girls' lives. Jim proposed that if this information were to be made public, it could have devastating consequences. Reluctantly, I confirmed Linda's presence with Mark, fully aware of the storm that would follow. When Jim pressed me about my feelings regarding the death of my wife's lover, I took a deep breath. Any damage to my family resulting from your publication will lead to legal action against you and your paper, I stated firmly. Jim responded, "This is going to come out, Mr. J. I can't prevent that." I looked out the window and noticed a TV truck parked in front of our house. "I see the truck," I sighed. "I guess you're right. Sorry, I have to go." Just then, I heard a knock at the door. Checking the security camera, I saw a young woman with a microphone. "Leave! You're trespassing and I will call the police," I communicated over the intercom. "Is your wife there, Mr. J?" she asked. Frustrated, I called the local precinct and requested that they assist in removing the press from my property. The officers arrived promptly, dispersing the group of 6 journalists, although the trucks remained, a constant reminder of our predicament. Next, I contacted the doctor, urging her to secure Linda before the press could invade the hospital. We discussed relocating our family and adjusting the girls' schooling, but they insisted on continuing at their current school, even if it meant living elsewhere. I promised I would consider it. Reaching out to my lawyer, Joan, again, I sought advice on how to navigate this chaotic situation. She agreed to issue a statement to the press to help alleviate the media frenzy surrounding us. The statement, issued through her office, expressed our desire for privacy, refusing to comment on the rumors about my wife, while warning that any continued harassment from the media would be actionable. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Detective Asper and her commander announced a press conference for 7:00 p.m. I watched, tense, as the police disclosed that Mark Stevens had been attacked and killed with a sharp object outside his home. They mentioned that a woman was inside the house at the time of the attack, but provided no indication that she had witnessed it. The investigation was ongoing. The detectives faced questions regarding the woman's marital status and whether her husband was a suspect. Detective Asper remarked that since everyone seemed to know her name, it was presumed she was married. She shared that their thorough investigation revealed no indication of my involvement, as I had been at home all night. A reporter from a distance inquired about other women, especially married ones, and their husbands. The police confirmed they were systematically investigating claims of Mark's involvement with several married women, further complicating the situation. Commander Johnson eventually wrapped up the briefing, stating that any additional information would be shared during the Wednesday update. As the police left amidst shouts from the reporters, I took immediate action, arranging for the girls' school to send their assignments electronically for the next few days. I also contacted Linda's parents, warning them to be cautious of the press, who had thankfully vacated our street, at least for now. The following Tuesday, the doctor called to report that Linda was becoming more responsive and that the police had been with her. I informed her parents and took the girls to the hospital. Upon our arrival, the police were just leaving. Detective Asper approached me, expressing a desire to speak. Inside the room, Linda looked dazed, yet her face brightened as she greeted the girls with smiles and hugs. However, her acknowledgement of me felt distant, almost minimal. The girls shared updates about the TV trucks and their school, while Linda seemed to drift off. The doctor suggested we let her rest, allowing us to step outside and take a moment to collect our thoughts amidst the chaos that surrounded us. While her parents huddled in conversation with the girls, I found myself in a deep discussion with Detective Asper. He observed that Linda seemed to be on the rebound, and I replied cautiously, admitting that she might be, but I didn't have any concrete evidence to support that claim. The detective then asked if I planned to take Linda home once she recovered. I pointed out that after her recovery, I was certain we would go our separate ways. Asper, ever the pragmatist, offered a different perspective. What kind of punishment do you think she might face, aside from everything that's already happened? He inquired. I took a deep breath, clarifying that for me, it wasn't about punishment at all. It was about respect and trust. I told him honestly that I could never trust Linda again, and frankly, I doubted she respected me either. With a slight smile, Asper suggested that perhaps Linda was fearful of me, hinting that I might not be the most trustworthy person in the room either. He accused me of trying to provoke him, claiming he knew I had no involvement in Stevens's death. He acknowledged my military background and formidable reputation, speculating that while a regular guy might not have been capable of such a thing, perhaps I could be. I insisted that it wasn't the case, emphasizing that we had CCTV footage from Stevens's house. Asper shrugged this off, saying it wasn't his concern, asserting that I wasn't there, and concluded with a thinly veiled threat. I'll see you in a few days. As the days passed, I noticed Linda gradually returning to a semblance of normalcy. I took the girls to see her every day but didn't linger much in her room. By the fourth day, she was set to be discharged, and she requested a private conversation with me. I sent the girls out, and she apologized for her actions, acknowledging that embarrassing me like that required more than a simple, "I'm sorry." "I want to come home when I'm released," she said, her eyes pleading. She pointed out the media presence outside and the potential disruption it could bring to the girls' lives, suggesting she could sneak out to avoid the cameras. I gave her a long look, knowing she was skilled at sneaking around. When she didn't look up and mentioned checking with security, I replied that I couldn't honestly say I wanted to be around her right now, but I had little choice in the matter. "I never meant for you to be hurt," I said, sharing my thoughts on her reckless actions. When I asked her directly whether Stevens had slept with her, she replied, "We were undressed in bed when the commotion started." I stared at her, fully aware she was lying. I couldn't bring myself to say I believed her, or that I would ever trust her again. "Let's just see how things go," I suggested, but I made it clear that my trust was shattered. Despite everything, I still expressed my love for her, then turned and walked out. Later, I made my way to the hospital security office to arrange for a car to pick Linda up behind the building and bring her back to my house at 4 p.m. The plan went off without a hitch, and she arrived home around 4:45, greeted by the kids and her parents. I had set up a makeshift bed in my office for myself while Linda would sleep in our bedroom. The rest of the day was awkward at best. In the living room, Linda, her mom, and the kids played Monopoly, while her dad and I retreated to the patio for a more private conversation. John asked what my plans were, and I admitted I really didn't know. But the odds were high that we were finished. He encouraged me to try to forgive her, emphasizing our long history of love and the wonderful family we had built together. However, John had his doubts about their long-standing love, questioning Linda's actions. He seemed particularly troubled by her insistence that there was no physical intimacy involved. I acknowledged her statement but stressed the uncertainty surrounding it, given the amount of time they had spent together. I pointed out that if they hadn't used protection, there could be serious consequences, like diseases or even pregnancy. John didn't like the sound of that and agreed to let Linda stay for the time being, but advised me to find a solution soon. After our talk, we returned inside, ate pizza together, and her parents eventually went home. As far as I knew, they didn't discuss the situation with Mark directly with her. That night, while putting the girls to bed, Laura asked Linda why she had gone to be with Mark. Linda apologized, admitting her weakness and wrongdoing. Laura expressed confusion, stating, "But he wasn't there, Daddy," and promised to talk more about it later when she understood better. After the girls were tucked in, Linda went to the kitchen, and I followed her about 10 minutes later. I called a public defender friend of mine to discuss the autopsy report. He confirmed that it was a public document and agreed to get it for me. As I entered the kitchen, I found Linda drinking a Pepsi. She asked if I would be sleeping in our room that night. I replied that I would be sleeping in the office. She welcomed me back any time but acknowledged the uncertainty of our future together. I expressed skepticism, and she suggested I be patient, emphasizing that everything had happened so fast in the past week. I climbed back up to my office and tried to sleep, but rest eluded me. I woke up at 5 a.m., brewed some coffee, and received the autopsy report from my friend. As I read it carefully, I focused especially on the analysis of the injuries, which revealed evidence of male and female secretions on Stevens's body. It became painfully clear that Linda had lied about not having any physical intimacy, a belief I held firmly due to her timing at the scene, only 2 hours before the incident. When Linda came downstairs, we managed to get the girls off to school, almost like a normal routine, though they seemed a bit subdued. While driving them, I spent a good amount of time weighing my options. If it hadn't been for Linda's illness, I would never have allowed her back into the house. Yet there were some advantages to having her here, particularly in making things a little easier on the girls if we could stabilize the situation. Just as I entered the house, another TV truck pulled up outside, and a young woman jumped out, shouting if Linda was home and if I had forgiven her. I smiled, waved, and warned her not to step onto our property. I went inside, where Linda had made some biscuits and offered me one, which I accepted. She then informed me about the TV truck outside and the circus it would likely cause. Outside, I could sense a palpable uncertainty in the air as voices floated in, discussing whether they knew I was present and whether it might be wise to proceed. My heart raced as I asked Linda what the TV crew wanted. After all, they had already published my name along with details about my activities at Mark Stevens's house. "Do you think they could cause more damage?" I asked, my voice tinged with worry. Linda's brow furrowed as she considered the possibility. "They probably could think of something," she replied cautiously. I contemplated our situation, the weight of the moment pressing down on me. "I want you to write down exactly what happened last Friday," I clarified. "From the confrontation all the way until you ended up in the hospital." "It doesn't have to be immediate," I added, "but I'd like it soon if possible." Linda nodded, acknowledging the task I had set for her. She seemed to understand the trauma involved, and she mentioned needing to call her workplace to check on her job status. I raised an eyebrow, puzzled. "Why would your job be at risk because of this? I doubt they would care about your personal life," she explained. "I've been off for a week. They allowed me to take a week of leave followed by vacation time. I need to check in." With that, she retreated to her bedroom to type on her computer, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I headed to my office, intent on diving into research regarding the autopsy material. I had made sure I would receive the test results, but it seemed it would take a few more days. Despite the turmoil surrounding us, Linda was trying her best to act normally, and I acknowledged her effort. Yet I couldn't shake the feeling that she must have a million questions about what had transpired. Our routine carried on for 2 days until the test results from the autopsy finally came in. To my dismay, Linda's DNA had been identified on Mark Stevens's body, confirming that she had indeed been intimate with him. As I awaited her account of the night, a grim realization settled over me. I couldn't see how our life together could continue after this. The next evening, after dinner, Linda walked into my home office. "I finished writing," she said, handing me a printout. My heart pounded as I read her words. In her account, Linda expressed deep remorse, apologizing for her weakness. She detailed the events of that fateful night at the party. When Mark asked her to dance, she felt an exhilarating thrill wash over her, drawn in by his magnetic presence and charming reputation. As they danced, she became lost in the moment, her thoughts consumed only by him. During a slow song, she felt an attraction that was hard to resist. At that moment, she admitted she would have followed him anywhere, completely captivated. Mark suggested they slip out the side door to go to his place, promising her an experience she would never forget. After the dance, when I wasn't at the table, she decided to head to the restroom with June. Upon her return, she sensed my anger but thought it would pass in time. Desiring Mark, she took the plunge, exiting through the side door, and they drove to his house. Mark kissed her passionately and carried her upstairs to his bed, where they became intimate. Afterward, as she tried to settle down, a car alarm interrupted the moment. Mark left, instructing her to wait, but through the window, she caught a glimpse of someone in black fleeing the scene after jumping the fence. In a panic, Linda put on a robe and went to the front door, where she found Mark lying in the driveway, gravely injured. Guilt overwhelmed her. She felt as though she was somehow responsible for what had happened. When the police arrived, she ended up in the hospital, racked with confusion about her actions and her love for me. As I looked up at her, tears streaming down her face, she asked if I was the person she had seen outside that night. I clarified that I had been at home, drowning my sorrows in alcohol while grappling with the imminent end of our marriage. I admitted to feeling hatred, but assured her that the police had confirmed my alibi with the security footage. She acknowledged what they had said, but I interrupted, unable to contain my anger. "Stevens got what he deserved," I declared vehemently. Linda shot back. "He didn't deserve that. He was kind and had a positive impact on my life." I replied coldly, "We don't need to discuss this. I can't love you anymore. Not after this. The person I thought I married would never have done what you did." I questioned whether the affair was worth the irreparable damage it had caused us both. The moment may have felt intense, but I emphasized that it wasn't worth the catastrophic consequences we were facing. I couldn't help but reflect on how things might have been different if I had come home that night. If only Stevens hadn't died. If only Linda hadn't made such reckless choices. But now, with Stevens dead, I felt the rift between us was too wide to bridge. In a moment of anger, she accused me of having killed him and fled the room, leaving me alone with my thoughts. Under my breath, I muttered that she was the one who had caused his death. From that moment forward, our relationship grew increasingly cold. I made a firm decision not to defend myself or attempt to mend our shattered relationship. I wouldn't admit what had transpired that night, fearing she would betray my trust to the authorities. After all, she had just confessed that had Stevens not been killed, her reckless night would have been worth facing the consequences. Maybe not in those exact words, but the sentiment was clear. Weeks later, I filed for divorce, seeking custody of the kids so they could stay in our home. Linda had managed to retain her job, so I asked for no alimony and no child support, just liberal visitation rights. I insisted that she move out, and she went to stay with her parents. Soon after, I had her served with the divorce papers. Her father called me, demanding that I withdraw the papers because Linda was distraught. "She deserves to be distraught," I told him bluntly. "She should get a lawyer." His anger was palpable, but I couldn't tell if it was directed at me or at her. When he inquired about visitation, I explained the terms I had laid out, feeling a mixture of relief and heartache as I faced the reality of our broken family. Linda had told me that she could come over any night to spend time with the girls, and the following day, she arrived at 5 o'clock. I had prepared a comforting dinner of macaroni and cheese, and we sat together with our daughters, laughing and enjoying the meal. After dinner, we engaged in a lively board game session, helping the girls wind down before bedtime. Once they were tucked in, Linda expressed her desire to have a serious conversation. I, however, declined. She insisted that we needed to work through our issues, especially for the sake of the girls. Linda suggested that they would have to adapt if we separated, and proposed finding a place where the girls could visit me. She emphasized that the sooner we settled the divorce, the sooner we could establish a visitation schedule. As she pleaded with me, she expressed regret for her mistakes and professed her love for me. But I stood firm, rejecting the idea of staying married after her betrayal with another man. I made it clear that it was time for us to move on. I could see tears welling up in Linda's eyes as she quietly began to cry. Despite feeling a flicker of sympathy for her, I was not about to change my mind. Our marriage was over, and I had to accept that. The divorce proceeded smoothly, and we worked out a joint custody agreement. Linda found a cozy apartment that had a second bedroom for the girls, allowing them to feel at home in both places. We settled into a distant but amicable relationship, both focused on ensuring the girls were well-adjusted and happy. About 4 months after the split, I started dating again. Women from our social circle and my workplace began to notice that I was single and soon showed interest. Whenever Linda had the girls, I brought several women home for the night. While none of those relationships lasted long-term, they were usually fulfilling and enjoyable. I made a conscious decision to steer clear of married women, as some seemed eager to be with me. My experience taught me that it was wrong to get involved with someone who was already committed to another. While Linda was a good mother to the girls, she struggled with her own well-being. She began taking antidepressants and often spent long hours sleeping, but she managed to keep up with her job. Her parents and the girls assured me that she wasn't dating anyone. 10 years later, our daughter Shell went off to college, and today, Laura was about to start her junior year. The girls had adapted well to our joint custody arrangement and were thriving. They both dated during high school and presumably continued to do so in college. As for me, I had entered a long-term relationship with a younger woman named Cody, whom I met one night at a bar. Like me, she was divorced and had 2 children at home. Her ex-husband had moved to the West Coast. We met when she was 35, just as her kids were entering high school, twins who were sophomores preparing to head off to college. Cody and I soon moved in together at my house. I loved her. She was lively, intelligent, and our relationship flourished. While she might not have been as conventionally beautiful as Linda, Cody was attractive in her own right, and men still noticed her when we went out. I made it a point to inform her early on about the tumultuous events surrounding Mark Stevens' death, though I didn't reveal the details of how he had died. Over time, the media frenzy surrounding the incident subsided, and no one was ever arrested or charged in connection with it. One Saturday, I was surprised when Detective Logan showed up at my door. I invited him in, and since I was home alone, we sat down for a chat. He mentioned his recent retirement and expressed his happiness about his generous pension. I congratulated him, curious about why he was visiting me. He then dropped a bombshell, stating that he was convinced I had killed Stevens, even admitting that perhaps Stevens had deserved it, though not my wife. I quickly denied any involvement, and to my shock, Logan congratulated whoever did it. I asked him why he thought Linda didn't deserve it, and he explained that it was just one night. He added that Linda did what many married women might do when someone pursued them, suggesting that if it had been a discreet meeting, perhaps we could have moved on. I pressed him for details about his partner, and he shared that she was now a captain, a real go-getter in the department. We shook hands and he left, leaving me to ponder his words. As for Linda, she eventually made a partial recovery. We would occasionally drive together when I took Shell to school. On one of those trips, I asked her about her well-being. Linda mentioned that she was okay and had a boyfriend, a situation she described as somewhat like a friends with benefits arrangement. I confirmed that Cody and I were committed and planning to move in together once her kids went off to college. Linda whispered that she wished none of the turmoil had ever happened, expressing regret over our missed opportunity to be empty nesters and enjoy life together. We both ended up crying as we reminisced about what could have been. Later, she moved into her friend's apartment, but I doubted she ever fully recovered from that night, just as I had never fully come to terms with it myself. I admitted to never regretting what happened to Stevens. In my mind, it might have saved many marriages, a somewhat altruistic deed in a twisted sense. Now, at 37 years old, I recently discovered that my 35-year-old wife had an affair with our daughter's best friend's father. Let's call him Doug. To give you a bit of context, my wife and I had been together for 10 years. I thought we had built a solid life together, having welcomed our daughter and recently purchasing our first home. We first met at a live music show in a dive bar downtown and ended up spending the rest of that night together. It was odd that we hadn't even exchanged numbers when we parted ways, and I never expected to cross paths again. Then one day, I walked into a small Mediterranean restaurant and spotted her there. We exchanged glances, both of us interpreting it as a sign, a twist of fate indicating we were meant to be together. Ever since that day, we have been inseparable. 2 years ago, we bought our house and moved from the city to the suburbs, aiming to provide our 6-year-old daughter with a good school and a safe, nurturing environment to grow up in. My wife became a stay-at-home mom, although she occasionally took on event planning jobs. Her experience in this field helped her rise to the top of the PTA committees, a role she took immense pride in. Life was good, until it wasn't. A shocking revelation. The work that Linda did to raise funds for the children meant the world to her. I always admired her dedication and passion for helping others. Never in a million years did it cross my mind that she would find an opportunity to cheat on me at a PTA meeting, but apparently That was exactly what happened. That's how our daughter ended up meeting her best friend, too. Although they weren't in the same class, Linda and Doug, the girl's father, decided it would be a great idea for the kids to have a play date. When they came over to our house, I thought it was just another mom from the PTA bringing her child for a swim in our large in-ground pool. So I was taken aback to see Doug, a man, walking through the door. I know it might sound possessive, but it caught me off guard. I just wasn't expecting a dad to be involved. As Linda busied herself in the kitchen, I took a moment to pull her aside. "Hey, I didn't realize Doug was a man you were talking about. I just thought it would be another mom," I said, trying to keep my tone light but genuinely curious. She laughed it off, insisting it wasn't relevant information to disclose. Her reaction struck me as odd, but I didn't think much of it at the time. Trusting her instincts, I grabbed a beer from the fridge and stepped outside to get to know Doug better. As it turned out, Doug worked in the same industry as I did, which helped ease some of my initial concerns. His wife was overseas for a few months on business, and he mentioned that he was just thrilled to have some company for his daughter. "I'm not usually involved in the PTA," he said with a chuckle, "but I'm just picking up some slack while she's away." He seemed like a decent enough guy, and knowing that he was married put my mind at ease, even if just a little. I thought, if I wouldn't entertain the thought of cheating, surely he wouldn't either. Weeks went by, and our daughter quickly grew close with Doug's daughter. They were inseparable, always wanting to hang out, whether it was at our house, Doug's, or at local parks. As happy as I was for them, I noticed that I was seeing less of Linda. She was either busy with PTA commitments or taking our daughter out to play with her new best friend. I couldn't complain too much since our daughter was thrilled, but there was a growing distance between Linda and me. During the times we were both home, Linda seemed distant. She would often retreat to bed an hour before I did, or would wait until she thought I was asleep before coming to bed. Frustrated, I decided to confront her one night. I pretended to be asleep and waited for her to come in. When she finally entered the room, I brought up my concerns calmly, asking if there was something wrong in our marriage that we needed to address. In a seemingly innocent way, I mentioned that it felt like she was spending more time with Doug than with me. Instead of addressing my concerns, she deflected, saying that if she spent less time with him, I would have to explain to our daughter why she couldn't see her friend anymore. She then launched into a passionate rant about how much it would hurt the kids, making me feel like I was the bad guy for wanting to spend time with my family. Feeling frustrated, I left the room and went to my office to get some work done. As I sat there, replaying our conversation in my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very off. You wouldn't think that simply asking someone to spend more time with family would lead to such a heated argument, but whenever I mentioned Doug, she became defensive. Letting my curiosity get the better of me, I logged into her email account. We had an open password policy, so I knew all her passwords and she knew mine. As I sifted through her emails, I noticed it was pretty clean, save for a security alert about another email account. It was the kind of alert you get when you have a backup email linked to your primary account. At first, I thought it might be a PTA-related email, but as I dug deeper, it became clear she was handling PTA matters through her personal account. I couldn't think of a reason she would need another email account. Fortunately for me, because her main email was set as the backup for this new one, I was able to change the password and log in. What I found confirmed all my suspicions. The email wasn't filled with countless messages, but there was a disturbing chain of explicit conversations between Linda and Doug. They exchanged intimate pictures, set dates, and made serious promises to one another. I also found numerous order confirmations for items like laundry services and sex toys, none of which I had ever seen. It was evident they were planning to leave their partners and be together. Doug was strategizing about leaving his wife without risking his assets, while Linda seemed more than willing to break up our family. It was a gut-wrenching realization that the woman I trusted with my heart was plotting a new life with someone else. My world felt like it was crashing down around me. I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't sure how to approach the subject. The betrayal stung deeply, and I was left grappling with the realization that everything I thought I knew about my marriage was about to change forever. I was determined to come out on top in the divorce. The moment I saw the papers, I knew I had to act fast. If she wanted a divorce, she'd get one, but it wouldn't unfold in the way she imagined. I would make sure of that. I ended up sleeping in my office that night. I just couldn't bear to be around her. The next morning, I called in sick to work and met with a divorce attorney to kickstart the process. It took a couple of weeks to get all the paperwork ready, and during that time I did my best to keep up appearances at home, acting as if everything was perfectly fine. But the moment the divorce papers were ready, I had a plan. I knew exactly how I wanted to serve them to her. On the day of her weekly PTA meeting, I took our daughter to a sitter and decided to follow my wife to the school. I walked in partway through the meeting, and the shock on her face was priceless. The PTA president greeted me warmly, inviting me to introduce myself to the group. I stood up, cleared my throat, and said, "I'm Casey, my wife's husband," then quickly corrected myself, adding, soon-to-be ex-husband. Her confusion was palpable, but the interest from everyone else in the room was electric. I could see their eyes widening as I glanced back and forth between my wife and her lover, Doug, before handing her the envelope containing the divorce papers along with all the evidence of her infidelity. The air was thick with disbelief as I explained the situation, detailing what I had discovered. Gasps filled the room. One father even raised his hand, eager to discuss his own marital issues, revealing that his wife was friends with several of the women present. It turned out I wasn't the only one feeling betrayed. As I was leaving, one of the mothers stopped me and asked for more details about my findings. She wanted to ensure that Doug's wife was aware of what was happening, so she gave me her cell number, urging me to reach out. As time passed, Doug's affair with my wife unraveled his marriage too. Doug's wife filed for divorce, and because he cheated, she ended up with the house, cars, and most of their assets, along with child support and alimony payments. I could only guess that Doug was now losing more than half of his paycheck to his ex-wife. When my wife realized that both she and Doug were going to be in serious trouble after being caught, she begged for my forgiveness, trying to remind me of the good times we once had. But I wasn't swayed. I went through with the divorce, and she ended up getting absolutely nothing from me. She moved into a cramped one-bedroom apartment with Doug, while I retained the family home. Eventually, I sold the house and moved back to my hometown to stay with my mom, who graciously offered to help with childcare while I worked. Looking back, that move proved to be a blessing. My daughter now has the opportunity to spend time with her cousins and make friends her own age, flourishing in a way I never could have imagined in our old town. I still keep in touch with Doug's ex-wife. Our daughters are good friends, and we often share our experiences, supporting each other as we navigate this new chapter in our lives. This story is a testament to the complexities of betrayal and the whirlwind of emotions that accompany divorce. I had to manage my feelings while ensuring the best for my daughter, a true reflection of my decisiveness and commitment to moving forward. It's vital to focus on personal well-being and the well-being of children during such turbulent times, highlighting the intricate nature of human relationships. Ultimately, we must find ways to reorient ourselves toward the future and create a stable environment for our children.